Ladies and gentlemen and children, we're back with the second part of the Jimmy Jacques interview. And it's my pleasure to have Jim on board with all about his life in harness racing.
If you're looking for help with any form of finance, give Gary Crocker a call. With over 20 years experience in the finance industry and 30 years in real estate, Gary is your go-to person. Whether it be your first or 20th purchase for owner occupation or investment, or for your self-managed super fund, a commercial property, a vacant allotment, a unit, a construction loan, a personal loan or a car loan. For respectful, professional and informed assistance with any of your financial needs, call Gary on 0408 945 755 now.
What was the break between, you got the payout, how long before you broke into your career, which it is now?
Okay, so for 18 months I was trying to get on. Mm-hmm. And
what did you do?
Ray Fewings was the person hiring and firing at the radio station. Ray didn't want me to have a job.
What did you do? What
did I do?
What did you do to try to get that job? Did you ever think about, well, I'm going interstate, or that was never on the cards? It was going, if I don't get it. So did it ever get to the point where Jimmy Jacques said, if I don't get this job in the next 6 months, I'm going to give up altogether and I'm just going to go and get a job?
Basically, I did give up trying. I gave up trying to get a job calling the trots, and that's when cycling came into it. Yeah. So then I got a job calling cycling.
So how long was the cycling thing? That obviously assisted you to get in. Who did you take over for as the main race caller? Was that 5DN? Who was calling the race? Who had the?
So what happened to get the job? To get the job with
5AA, 5DN. Who was it?
It was called Tab Radio back in those days. So what happened is, John May from the Strathalbyn Harness Racing Club, he was the president of Strath. Mm-hmm. And he said, Jimmy, we've got a non-TAB meeting. We can't get anyone to call our meeting. Mm-hmm. So he rang me out of the blue. He said, I know you can commentate. Can you please come and help us out? Mm-hmm. And there's a good affiliation with Strathalbyn there, basically because
they gave you a break.
I drove my first ever winner there at Strathalbyn when I was driving.
Well, we've missed that part.
Yeah.
Was that before Power Station?
Yeah,
that's when you did Uncle Bob.
Same time at Power Station.
So how many drives did you have?
I don't know, but I reckon I had about 80 drives before.
How many winners?
I ended up getting 5 winners.
That's all right.
1 double.
Mm. Where was the double?
Victor Harbour, the old track. Victor
Harbour. What
were they? The first one was Red Passion, which was trained by Adrian James at Kersbrook, and I thought it was nearly a good thing. It was 16-1, and I had poor punting before that, and I didn't have enough money to back it. And the second one was Dancing Butler, trained by Peter Lawrence. So that was the double that I had, Victor Harbour. That was about 1985.
So for those that don't know Jimmy Jacques and those that listen to you on the radio and see you whenever, I would say that if you asked 95% of them, would they know if Jimmy Jacques was a harness racing driver? Most would say no, wouldn't they?
I'm not really sure on that. I don't know what people think of me.
Well, no, how are they going to know those facts?
Oh,
You've just told us now, right?
Yeah.
So that's good. So who were you driving for? Did they have concession claims though? So didn't.
Oh yeah. Mainly I drove for my Uncle Bob when I first started driving.
Right? So who were the ones that were the same age as you that would have been concession drivers that day? Would it be Darryl Hill or all those, or were they?
David Quirk was around there. Hilly, I used to drive.
Darryl Hill.
Darryl Hill, yeah.
When he was a junior, I can remember one of the first races at the new track at Victor Harbour. He was down to drive about 7 of the 10 horses in the first race because he had a junior claim. Yeah. So who else would have been at those days?
Yeah, Peter Lawrence was around that era as well, I'd say. I just can't really remember.
So when you said you drove one for Peter Lawrence...
He was the trainer.
He was training for who? Was he training for Tom Roberts then, or was he training on...
No, he was doing his own thing at that stage. I've known Peter for a long time. I've known him since we were kids, basically, you know.
So where was he based then?
I think he was based at Freeling then, I reckon, at his mum and dad's property, I reckon. Yeah. Could be right, I can't remember. But that was back in about 1985.
Okay. So you got the gig So Ray was in charge of Tab Radio, but wouldn't give you a job.
Wouldn't give me a job.
So you went and did Strathalbon.
Ray and myself get on really well though. You know,
He just didn't want to give you a job.
Yeah, fair enough. So I went and called Strathalbon. I thought I'll give it a last crack, because what happened was, after trying to get a job, I said, stuff this, I'm not going to the Trots. And the only time I went to the Trots with Mike Turner got me a ticket to go to the Inter-Dominion at Globe Derby one time, you know, and that was a midweek thing, but I hadn't been to the Trots for like 18 months. And John said, I don't care. He said, I know you can call. I want you to call the meeting for it. So I thought, I'll do it. I'll go. That was in the days when Dean Caparella used to do the country trots, right? Yeah. And Terry McAuliffe was the primary harness commentator. Okay.
Before he went to Melbourne, wasn't it?
No, that was after he come back, I reckon.
I thought he'd come back and did the Dogs, but don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think it was before he went to Victoria. Anyway, so I went and called the meeting, and I think a guy called Greg Rossiter was doing the VHS recordings there before John Rothy's time, I think. And I went to him. I said, "Look, can you give us a copy of the VHS copy?" And I thought, I'll just because I knew there was a changing of the guard at Tab Radio, because Greg Sanders had taken over from Ray Fewings as far as the hiring and firing was concerned. So I thought I'll just give it one last ditch. So I went in, rang up Greg Sanders. I said, "Look, I haven't been in the Trots for such and such. I can do a better job than this." I said, "You know, if you need someone, I might be the person to help you out." So he watched it and he said, "Yeah, not bad." He said, "But you know, you need a bit more." I said, "Well, why don't you just give me a little bit of work experience where I can get up to speed,
one or two races,
that,
and might,
if you need someone, I can then be there ready to go for you." So I used to go to the Tuesday night meetings with Caparella, meeting there, Kapunda, sometimes Gadina, you know, and basically call the last race on the program. And basically that's where it came from there. And eventually Ray left Tab Radio and went back to Talkback Radio with 5AA, I think it was. So then there was a position for me. So then I got that, because Ray left and then I got the job. So they offered me a position, and that's when I started calling. I think it was 1997. Yeah. So then eventually what happened was Ron Paps left the company. Terry McAuliffe, who was the primary harness commentator, went to primary thoroughbred, and then that's when I went to primary harness and I started calling there. So the first SA Cup I called was in, I think, 2000, the year 2000.
Which was who? Gamelot?
It was either 1999 or 2000. No, it was Safe and Sound. Safe and Sound beat Sorrento Star by this much.
Which was a Tommy Roberts horse. Sorrento Star.
Sorrento Star, that's right. Yeah, Peter Manning trained. Peter Lawrence drove her, but John Justice got up with Safe and Sound right on the line. Yeah.
So you've called some of who's the best horses you've actually called in the races itself, not ones you've seen, ones you've called.
I'd have to be Blacks of Fate.
Blacks of Fate.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Where did you call him to?
He won the Inter-Dominion. Yeah, won the Inter-Dominion. The Globe Derby, what was that, 2009 was it, or 2007? I can't remember what year, but 2009, our last ever Inter-Dominion, that's it, Kaputski, yeah. So, yeah, Blacks of Fate, the best horse that I've called, I'd say.
What about, you've probably seen plenty of drivers and trainers come out of South Australia. What's, a few names that you'd say, well, they're world class, or...
Definitely Jeffrey Webster and Ross Sugars. That was sensational, And you mentioned with your shot last week, David Harding. I think David's probably driven the best race I've ever seen here in South Australia in my time of commentating. Unfortunately, I can't remember the horse's name, but it was at Port Pirie. It was Ashley Dunkley's horse, the grey horse, and he was back last with a lap to go. And I thought, you got no hope, mate. You've got too much traffic. And David just pulled it to the outside down the back straight and just went whooshka. Went 5-6 wide and went around and won the race, and it was the only way the horse could have won the race. And but I've seen some really, really good drives here. I've seen Ryan Rohorick drive some fantastic races. There's been a lot of good drives here, but look, I really do. I do believe that Jeffrey Webster and Ross Sugars are as good as any drivers that we've had here in South Australia. And of course we lost them to Victoria.
What about trainers? I mean. There's.
Well, you mentioned Bill Moyle. I had a close association with Bill because my Uncle Bob used to drive his horses, Bronze Honey in particular. But my Uncle Bob was a very talented driver. People underestimate how good he was because I got to learn a lot from him and the skills from him. I actually drove my first winner at Strathalbyn because I listened to what my uncle told me about a certain horse that was in the racing competition with me. Because I used to go to the trots with Bobby, and he won a race at Murray Bridge on a horse, I can't remember its name, that Albie Holberton trained. And Bobby used to always, like, he had a ute, so there was only three people that could go to the trots, basically, unless you're in the back where he puts the milk, you know. But basically, Bobby would be driving, I'd be in the middle, and whatever guest that came with us would be there in the front. And the guy that come with us, and I can't remember who it was, Bobby said, oh, that thing of Albie's bolted in. Bobby said, nah. He said it was dead. He said it was flat. He said, but you were just sitting there like that. He said, yeah, if I let its head go, it just would have carved up. It just would have carved. He said, I had to trick it to win. He said, I told Albie, get rid of the horse. It's no good. It's not going to win any more races. So that was the week before at Murray Bridge when they had Murray Bridge trots. And anyway, we went to Strathalbyn the next week, and I was driving Dancing Butler. And I said to Peter Lawrence, the trainer, I said, look, this thing of Albie's is going to lead. Jock Dunlop was driving. Jock was another one at that time driving. I said, Bobby told me it's no good. So I said, I've got to get off its back because I was drawn behind it and I thought I could actually sit behind it and then come off when it suited me. And basically, Darryl Hill come across it. He got between us. I couldn't keep the leader back. So I was three back the inside. They had Graham Silk, who'd backed the leader, riding shotgun on the outside. And I was trying to get him out the way.
The good old days.
But the end result is I got off with a lap to go and I went forward and Jock on the leader just carved up.
He's outside.
Gone. Yeah, because he let his head go and it just stopped. You know? And I won the race. So, that helped me. But Bobby was very, very skillful. You're a very talented driver and people don't realise that.
So, just digressing a little bit, you went to Wavell. You wouldn't have been old enough to drive then, but you would have been to Wavell with your family.
Yeah, I remember going to Wavell. I remember Bonadius as my favourite horse at Wavell.
The Brown brothers.
Yeah, I had a good memory. I remember seeing Richmond Lass win the Interdominion in 1967, 1969. I was only a young punk then because I was a 61, so I would have only been 7 years old.
7 or 8.
Yeah, I was 7. But I remember poking through and the crowd was massive. And I remember the atmosphere at Wavell was sensational. And even at Globe Derby, when Carclew won the Interdominion, there was 30,000 people there. But I remember that strongly at Wavell.
So with the Back to Wavell, which you were part of, the first one, which was just amazing. It was amazing when you get people like Kate Gath and Lance Justice and that with goosebumps and said, this is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Greg Sugars, I can remember getting his owner to pay for a set of colours, and of course they won, and then he went back to Victoria and was wearing them, and they kept winning.
Yeah.
Paul, he just said, this is the greatest money I've ever spent.
Yeah.
But what were your thoughts on that Back to Wavell, the first one in 17 or 19, wherever it was?
I really needed it, Gary, because over the last few years, knowing what the sport was into what it is, sometimes I go home depressed from work. And when I went to Wavell, it was the first time I'd been to the trots for about 3 or 4 years, where I had a spring in my step when I left left work.
It was amazing, wasn't it?
It was fantastic. It was like I was rejuvenated as a person. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
And that
night, people say that they hear your passion in your voice. And that night, it was an amazing. Everything was amazing, from interviews to Wayne on the first corner. We were there on that corner. I'm thinking, you're gone. Yeah. You're about to fall out. Yeah. Everything was great. So
it was. And I've got to say, if anything that Harness Racing SA have done right was definitely going back to Wavell, because it made us feel rejuvenated.
Last night's harness racing meeting at the Wavell Showgrounds has been hailed a major success after a big crowd showed up. It's the first time since 1973 that the venue has hosted a meeting, and the move back into the city was clearly well received by everyone involved in the sport. Looks fantastic there. Crossing the line nicely.
It made me feel rejuvenated. It made me feel good, and it made people realise what harness racing is all about, and that's what it was there on that night at Wavell. It was sensational, and it was something that we all needed. And look, I tried to make a big night of it. I tried to, knowing that there'd be new people there, tried to explain them a little bit about the sport to try and give them a heads up. And I felt that I did a good job myself that night in getting people to understand about the sport and what it's all about.
But some of those people that came back, like the Paul Cavallaro syndication, which, with the nice horse that they've got that they bought. They were people that had horses with Paul when he was in his heyday, and they came back to Wavell, and that ignited the fire again for them to get their horses again. The couple of Art Majors, the one that's Artillery, and the other one, the nice horse before. Well, I suppose we could talk forever, but old Max time restrictions Beasley.
Yep.
He'll cut it up to pieces if I don't stop. So, in closing, is there anything you'd like? Just quickly, your thoughts on harness racing in South Australia at the moment? Is it savable?
Well, I suppose anything's savable if you've got the commitment and the help that you need. And I don't.
Do they have those?
I don't think we have got that. Look, the last couple of years have been really hard for me. I tell you what, when I took on the job as commentator, I felt, as stupid as it sounds, I felt that I could make a difference for the industry.
Well, you did.
I knew that it was sinking and it was disappearing, and
But that's a long time ago.
It was.
So if you're comparing that till now, it's no different than me when I went on the board. You don't go on there. You go on there because you want to make it better or return it to what it was, which unfortunately I tried and couldn't. But I'm not in it on a daily basis. I don't get my bread and butter out of horses. But you do. If for argument's sake, what are you, 60 years of age, eh? Do you have the fire in your belly to call with the passion that you have for another 5 years?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Would you take a step down and do the dogs? You'd just go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still calling greyhound, right?
I know that. I listened to. I watched Murray Bridge and that. Yeah. So.
Look, I felt I could make a difference. I tried to make a difference when the South Australian TAB was purchased by the Queensland TAB, and I was employed then by Queensland, and my roster wasn't big. Like, I only had 2, sometimes 3 shifts a week at the most, and I had plenty of spare time. And I put up a proposition to Harness Racing SA because I could see
what was going to happen.
What was going to happen where we are now. And I thought I put up a really good proposition to Harness Racing SA, because back in those days, something we had in South Australia we didn't have compared to, say, Queensland and New South Wales. The commentators in Queensland and New South Wales would get paid a fee just to go to that track and call at that particular track. We've never had that here in South Australia. And I tried to introduce that, but with benefits to the actual industry. And I put a huge proposition where I spoke with my wife, Priscilla, and I said, look, I'm going to put this proposition to Harness Racing SA, but I said it's going to take me away from family life. I said I'm going to have to put in probably 50 hours a week to do what I want to do to get it to where I want it and done properly. And she gave me her backing. Yeah, go ahead and do it. So I put the proposition to Harness Racing SA, to Mark Carey, who was the CEO at the time, and I couldn't believe that they declined the offer. And then the thing that really, and I was talking about things about going to sporting clubs,
I understand,
getting syndications, getting the horses to race in their club colours.
So this would have been this was 15 years ago, wasn't it?
No, 20 years ago. Yeah, it was early 2000s.
And now, in hindsight, you can see that's one of the non-promotion of the industry is one of the reasons it's failed. Or is failing.
I believe.
Do you have any family members interested in harness racing?
No, my cousin Wayne's dropped out.
Do you have children?
Dropped out. I got 2 girls, but I've never got involved in harness racing.
They're too smart for that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing now, Gary. Everyone's keeping their kids away because
time's valuable, and
you got to live.
All right. Well, look, Jimmy, thank you so much.
Gary?
All the very best for the future, Jim, and let's hope that you can get another 5 years with your passion. Because it'll be a much sadder place when you're not there, and it'll be interesting to see who does take over if you decide to hang up the binoculars.
Nah, no one's indispensable. There's always someone that comes through.
Oh, well, yes, that's true, but sometimes they're not quite as good as the one that the predecessor. Thank you very much, Jimmy.
I've tried my best.
Thank you very much.